I was hanging out down the street. Same old thing I did last week. Not a thing to do, but talk to you about sex in That 70s Show Season 1. I'm Brian Downs, this is Pro Sex Studio. On the channel here I discuss the sexual attitudes presented by film and television, and if you've been watching the channel, and who hasn't, you'll know that the sexual attitudes I so often examine are negative. It's a bombardment of sex negativity. Hollywood seems to be determined to condition you to be extremely anxious and nauseated about your own sexuality and everyone else's. So imagine my astonishment when, watching That 70s Show Season 1 for the very first time. I didn't watch it when it was on TV. I don't have time to watch everything. It was on Netflix. I tried it out. And imagine my astonishment when I realized it was a counter example. That 70s Show Season 1 gets a sex positive rating. Only one so far. How many videos on this channel? I don't know. I don't count. Do you count? Mention it in the comments if you do. Also like, subscribe, all that kind of thing. It's great for the channel. Thanks. The premise, of course, of this sitcom, which first aired in 1998, is that there's a lovable band of teenage misfits living in a small town in Wisconsin in the 1970s, and they have their hijinks and their misadventures. It's a sitcom. Their parents are also major supporting characters. Let's talk about their various relationships. We have Michael Kelso, played by Ashton Kutcher in a very early role, and Jackie, his girlfriend, played by a very young Mila Kunis. They have a physically passionate relationship. In episode 1, in the pilot, she tells him that she wants to have a sexual encounter in the back seat on the way home from the Todd Rundgren concert they're going to attend. Just thinking about that encounter in the back seat quickly inspires her to invite him back to her place to listen to some Todd Rundgren records. Their excitement for each other is, of course, played for laughs. It's a comedy. But they're never punished for it. No, that they are sexually attracted to one another is never presented as ridiculous or dangerous or evil or self-destructive. Now, both of them are kind of dumb and shallow. That's their shtick in the show. They're the dumb, shallow couple. But they seem pretty happy. They remain together as a couple throughout season 1. They even managed to upgrade to actual vaginal sex in episode 14 without the house falling in on them. My God. 2 characters, teenagers, who have a passionate sexual relationship and never get punched in the face for it. Now, they suffer a little bit of eye rolling from the gang, and the other guys think Jackie is annoying, and Kelso's constantly saying he's going to break up with her, and he's not. Sure, it's a sitcom. But no one is made into a villain. Kelso is not evil because he's attracted to Jackie. Jackie is not dangerous because she's attracted to Kelso. They're just happy in their up and down way. The worst thing that happens to Jackie and Kelso is that in episode 17, The Pill, they have a pregnancy scare, and when Jackie figures out that she is in fact not pregnant, because nothing ever too dire happens in this show, she dumps Kelso because nothing will stand in the way of her dream that we haven't ever heard about before, of being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. But before long, their brief separation is over and they are reconciled a couple of episodes later and carry on. Again, nobody gets punched in the face. But the major relationship in That 70s Show is, of course, between Eric Foreman and Donna Pinciotti. Eric Foreman played by Topher Grace, and Donna Pinciotti played by somebody else named Laura Prepon, who is, wow. I want a time machine so I can go back to 1976 and have Donna be my girlfriend. But they have lived next door to each other all their lives. Their families know each other, and now they start to struggle with the fact that they are romantically and sexually attracted to each other now that they're becoming adults, they're teenagers. This is played for some charmingly awkward laughs and a little embarrassment, but you know they're going to become a couple. You just have that feeling, and this is part of the pilot episode. And instead of the absurdly prolonged unresolved sexual tension that you saw in shows like The X-Files, They move into their relationship pretty quickly. The pilot episode concludes with them kissing. And they have some ups and downs, but again, they're never punished for it. They're never demonized for it. And it would be very easy for this show to have gone the route of "you dirty little boy." When you have teenage characters, everyone is crashing into some catastrophe because of their desire to have sex, as a moral lesson that these are the wages of sin. But this is not what this show does. That's amazing. And as far back as the 1990s, to see that on television was a great pleasure. It would be very easy, by the way, for their parents to be attacking their sexuality. You stay away from that girl, that kind of thing. Doesn't happen. Even in episode 4, the Battle of the Sexes, wherein Donna beats Eric in a game of basketball in Eric's driveway, and they wind up on top of each other, sort of accidentally, which results in a moment of sexual tension before Donna is called home by her father yelling over the fence or something. Eric's dad, Red Foreman, sees this, but he doesn't offer any criticism of Eric for being on top of Donna. He just offers criticism of Eric for losing the basketball game. It's amazing. It's almost like Eric's parents accept the fact that he's a sexual person. And there's a beautiful scene, a terrific scene in episode 5, Eric's burger job. Eric has got a job at Fatso Burger, and he's coming home late from his shift. And Donna's parents are away for the weekend, and she has left the porch light on to signal that she is waiting for him to come visit her. They have not actually had sex, but Eric is ambitious and hopeful to upgrade this relationship to actual penetrative sex. Eric arrives at this beacon only to be greeted by Donna's dad. Her parents have decided to come home early. Now this scene could easily have been played as Mr. Pinciotti catching Eric. "Aha! I caught you, you dirty little boy." But it's not. It's played for gentle laughs with Mr. Pinciotti thanking Eric for making sure that Donna and her sister had no problems over the weekend while their parents were out of town, and for making sure no boys were lurking around. Which is funny that Mr. Pinciotti doesn't realize that Eric is the boy lurking around. And then Mr. Pinciotti closes the door, and Eric, hang-doggedly, disappointedly turns to go home. And we hear Donna's voice from an upper window, "Good night, Eric." That's beautiful. She was waiting for him. And no one gets punched in the face about it. Eric is not punished. He's not caught. He's not loaded up with shame about it. In fact, he's disappointed. They're both disappointed that they couldn't have their rendezvous. And no one is made into a villain for their sexuality. Usually it's villains who sex. How can you tell who's the bad person? It's the person who's pursuing sex. But in episode 7, that disco episode, Hyde, one of the gang, is showing off his new dancing skills with Donna. The whole group has gone to a discotheque. And on the dance floor, he tells her that he wants to kiss her. And she smiles and replies with, "Shut up and dance." Okay, now this will be developed into a plot line that Hyde is attracted to Donna, and Donna and Eric are not officially a couple. They haven't announced themselves as being in a relationship to their friends. Hyde's interested in Donna. Donna does not return his interest, but she doesn't shut him down that hard either. But the important thing is that neither of these people will be painted as evil because of their feelings. That Hyde is attracted to Donna does not destroy his friendship with Donna. That she turns him down doesn't destroy their friendship. Hyde is not made into the villain, the outcast, the monster of the piece because he was interested in Donna, and Eric was too. Donna turns Hyde down, and that seems to be the end of it. One of the most pivotal episodes in the season on this topic is episode 8, The Drive-In. Eric invites Donna to see The Omen, a famous horror film of the 1970s, at a drive-in theater, and everyone understands that this date is an opportunity to make out, but Donna is nervous about it, and nervous about it being too public. Nevertheless, they wind up embracing passionately on the hood of the Vista Cruiser, having been driven out of the car by Michael and Jackie's shenanigans in the back seat. They embrace so passionately that Donna falls off, and Eric is left on the hood alone with a silly look on his face, and people in nearby cars honk and yell, "Smooth move, Foreman!" Clearly, they have been recognized. They live in this community. These other people know them. But Donna climbs to her feet, takes a bow, and in an instant the two of them are back to making out on the ground next to the car with such passion that they're rolling around. No problems, no punishment. What happened? She was afraid of it being too public. It turned out to be very public, and she bounces back from that with great resilience, stands up, takes a bow, and dives right back into making out with her boyfriend. Hooray is how we're supposed to feel. Good for them is how we're supposed to feel. Look at how they're enjoying their sexual relationship. In fact, at the end of the episode, Eric goes home and his dad, Red, is sitting in the living room and says, how did you like the movie? And he asks him, how did the movie end? And Eric replies, I don't remember. To which Red, his father, who's kind of a demanding hard ass, says, attaboy. Red understands what happened at the drive-in. Red does not punish Eric for his sexuality, doesn't shake his finger at him, doesn't try to load his son up with shame about his erection. The show does veer toward the usual banality of sex negativity in episode 9, Thanksgiving, following directly after the drive-in, by the way. Eric's sister Lori, who's a relatively minor character in this season, comes home for the Thanksgiving holiday and she brings a friend with her, Kate, who weirdly looks a lot like Lori. They're about the same height, they have similar hairstyles, hair color, they're both white women, they have similar bone structure. Kate's only purpose, and this is why it's weird that she looks so much like Eric's sister, Kate's only purpose is to be sexy and to come onto Eric full speed. Kate is assigned to sleep in Eric's room while Eric is supposed to be sleeping in the basement, but he goes up to his room to get something. Kate is lying on his bed in a nightie when she invites him in, invites him to sit down, invites him to stay, leans in suddenly and gives him a kiss that he never asked for, then turns away from him, says, okay, good night, sends him out of the room, and disappears out of the show and the season just so she could be the villain by being sexy and asserting her sexuality. One of the negative memes, of course, that are repeated so often in television and movies is, it's villains who sex. How can you tell who's a bad person? It's the person who pursues sex. The only purpose of this encounter is so that Donna can be angry at Eric for having received this kiss he never asked for. So, here are the negative memes. Your problem is sex, which is when a hero has sex or desires sex is presented as a character flaw, and the wanting disaster, having sex, wanting sex. And of course, they didn't have actual sex, it's just a kiss, but usually that's enough to trigger the bad results. Negative meme, number one, the wanting disaster is having sex, wanting sex, pursuing sex leads to some catastrophe. One kiss with Kate, whom he will never see again, threatens his relationship with Donna. But by the end of the episode, Kate is forgotten, and Eric and Donna are reconciled. But now let's talk about the most important sexual relationship in this show, in season 1. It's the relationship between Kitty and Red Foreman, Eric's parents. Eric's parents have been married something like 20 years. Eric is 17 and his sister Lori is a few years older. They've been married 20 years or more. They are a monogamous couple, and they have an active and rewarding sex life. They like having sex with each other, and this show demonstrates that. It's in the pilot episode when the kids, the young people, the gang are going out of town to the Todd Rundgren concert. Eric and Kitty are sitting in the living room, and the kids are going out of town. They'll be gone for a while. And then suddenly they throw down their newspaper and they run upstairs together. And this is played, of course, for laughs. It's comedic. It's a comedy series. But it's not laughs had at their expense. We're not supposed to think that they're stupid or villainous or foolish for wanting to have sex with each other. A married couple in their own home wanting to have sex in their own bed. What's more socially acceptable? But very often, television shows, movies, absolutely try to avoid showing you any kind of eroticism in a marriage. If you're supposed to support the marriage, there's no eroticism in it. If there is eroticism in it, the wanting disaster is about to fall on you. But oh no, Red and Kitty like having sex with each other and grab opportunities to do so, and they never suffer for it. No one is ever shamed or punished. Doesn't happen. It's amazing. In fact, there's an episode wherein Red and Kitty go out to dinner. In fact, it's the episode The Drive-In, where Red and Kitty go out to dinner, and then after dinner, which didn't go so well, Red decides that they are going to go have sex in the car, just for something novel, something out of the way to do. And they're in the car in some secluded spot when a police officer comes up. All right, kids, break it up. And the police officer is surprised to discover that the people in the car are in their 40s. The police officer says, "Oh, you're adults." And Red says to him, "Why don't you go bust some pot-smoking teenagers before I give you an adult-sized kick in the ass?" Most comedies, most movies, most TV shows would have Red face down in the dirt, in handcuffs, getting kicked by the cop, embarrassed, hurt, humiliated because he was trying to have sex with his own wife. In that 70s show, season 1, the cop says, "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir," and turns around and walks away, and then Red and Kitty go right back to having sex. This, by the way, is a television show. It's a comedy. It's not real. Don't talk to a cop like that. You'll wind up face down in the dirt. But that's amazing. Amazing. Where else can you see a scene like that? I was absolutely delighted to watch the first season of that 70s show. No one is a villain for wanting sex, except for Kate, who's there for a minute. No one is shamed or punished or destroyed for their sex life. No one is betrayed in some terrible way to their death, as in so many noirs and so forth. And they do it all in a show that's about teenagers, young people, 17, 18, 19 years old, who are having their first sexual relationships and first sexual experiences. Instead of turning it into this hideous moralizing about why you shouldn't do it, they actually present sex as being fun and exciting and an important life experience. That 70s show gets 2 thumbs up from Pro Sex Studios. It's groovy, man. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. I'm Brian Downs. Come on back next week for more of this kind of analysis.